welcome back to another episode of Mood for Feud. I'm your host Katya, and today I am in the mood for news. We've got another bonus episode, another roundup of trending topics. I actually only picked 2 topics to discuss this week because I feel like they're both quite lengthy. So the first thing we'll talk about is a little update on the Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively situation. I think this might be the last time I talk about this because I'm kind of over them, if I'm being so honest. Since I last recorded, Justin Baldoni has actually filed a complaint against Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and their publicist, Leslie Sloan. And so I will just give a little quick wrap up on some of the claims he made in his complaint, but it really was as we predicted at the end of last week's episode, you know, saying like it's gonna turn into a he said she said type situation. Like exactly that has happened. So really both sides, it seems, are digging their heels in and saying, you know, my version of the truth is the truth, and unfortunately that just leaves the rest of us very confused. But we will go through some of the details of Justin's complaint, and then the next trending topic I want to talk about is the US TikTok ban. I don't know, I felt like I was watching the apocalypse. That's how it felt, truly. I will say I'm not based in the US, so the ban didn't actually affect me at all, which means that I was able to really just watch it play out without having any kind of first-hand implications in the decision either way. So yeah, I'll give a little run through what happened there, how I was reacting to it, some of the videos and stuff that I came across talking about it, and I honestly think that'll be a decent chunk for the bonus episode. Remember, if you enjoy the show and would like to support it, then please do leave a rating. You can leave a comment on Spotify, written review on Apple Podcasts, and you can follow the show so you never miss an episode. I'm also on socials at Mood for Feud, and I'm always looking to chat pop culture, so send me a message there. Okay, so update on Justin and Blake, or Jake as I called them last episode. On the 16th of January, Justin filed a 179-page complaint against Blake, Ryan Reynolds, and Leslie Sloan. And for comparison, I think Blake's complaint against Justin and Wayfarer was like 79 pages maybe. So this is so long. And complete, full, absolute, like, upfront disclaimer, I did not read the complaint. I read the intro and then I left it at that. I did not have the brain capacity to dive into that kind of a document. And like I said, I'm kind of over them. But Justin is suing for $400 million in damages to his reputation. And in his complaint, he accuses Blake of taking over the film's production, undermining his role as director, rewriting scenes, and having the film recut, all without his permission. So I don't know if you recall, but when we first covered this whole drama, whole fiasco back in August last year, there was this rumor that Blake had superseded the final cut of the film. Basically, the version that got released wasn't even Justin Baldoni's vision, it was all Blake Lively's, which of course is completely inappropriate if he's the director of the film. But those rumors were all just rumors. But here Justin is saying that is what happened. She did actually have the film recut, and his own version never saw the light of day. And I will say that is not good behavior from Blake. Like, know your place, girly, you're not the director. And it's just disrespectful as well. To be very clear, I think both of these people are incredibly disrespectful, and I think they both also have an air of entitlement around them. But yeah, not defending that whatsoever. And Justin is really doubling down on the fact that it's really interesting. Both of them claim the other person had way more power than they did. And when I look at it and I try to just like take everything at face value, to me, Justin had more power. Yes, Blake and Ryan are more connected in the entertainment industry. Yes, they probably have higher net worth than him. But I just don't understand how Blake and Ryan, even in their privileged positions of power in the entertainment industry, I just can't see how that can supersede a director that also co-owns the production company, who's calling all the shots, who also owns the rights to the movie, and also overpower, like, Steve Sarowitz has so much money. So people keep saying, like, oh, Blake and Ryan paying people off. Justin has access to, like, billions of dollars. That's 1000%. Blake and Ryan are not billionaire level wealthy. Yes, they're fucking filthy rich, but they're not, like, that level of rich. And yeah, but I find this interesting. He's really doubling down that Blake had all the power, blah, 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 blah. I mean, we do. He does also say that Blake's the reason why him and his family basically got to, like, walk the red carpet on premiere night and then were swiftly ushered into what he described as a basement, and they enjoyed the, you know, screening of the film from this, like, random basement room. And at first I was like, is he exaggerating? Like, was it actually just like a different theater, maybe a smaller sized screen, whatever? Maybe it was a bit darker, maybe you had to go down some stairs to get there. No, he was not joking. He was literally in some kind of storage room. He ended up sharing some photos along with the complaint of him and his family, and I did post one of these to my Instagram stories. Don't forget to follow me at Mood for Feud. And it's unfortunate. I will say I feel bad for his family. This is obviously a massive night for them, supporting their friend, whatever, and it sucks that they had to spend it this way. All that being said, I died. I don't know why. Maybe I'm like, I have dark humor or what, but just them, like, dressed in, like, full glam, red carpet ready, and then sitting in this room with, like, trestle tables and just 1,000 water bottles that are being stored there for the people who are, like, at the actual premiere. I died. I'm so sorry. I don't, that might make me a bad person, but I don't know. It's funny. Okay, it's not funny, the context, but, like, that image to me was just so hilarious. The juxtaposition of it all. And there's an interesting quote from his complaint as well that reads, "This is not a case about celebrities snipping at each other in the press. This is a case about two of the most powerful stars in the world deploying their enormous power to steal an entire film right out of the hands of its director and production studio." And look, maybe I'm underestimating Blake and Ryan's power. And I guess they have a billionaire bestie as well. They've got Taylor Swift. But I don't know. I find it really interesting. They're both trying to paint the other as this kind of power-hungry control freak. And it's just weird. It's weird to see this, like, fire fighting with fire. And it leaves the public who's witnessing all this shit really, like, pulled in one direction and then the other, and then anyway. His complaint goes on to say that Blake was hired as an actor and an executive producer, but she wasn't happy with this. She wanted to have more creative control than that. She really wanted a producer credit. And I will say, for anyone who doesn't know, an executive producer credit is... I remember when I was younger and I'd see that, like, George Clooney was the executive producer on this film, and I used to be like, oh, that must really be something quite important because it sounds really important. But an executive producer credit is, like, very ambiguous. It can be given for example, if I'm, like, a famous Hollywood actor and I'm doing the film, and then I use my networks or my connections to get another famous Hollywood actor to maybe make an appearance or to play a character, then I get an executive producer credit, because it's like I was the one who used my connections to get that person on the screen. But yeah, so an executive producer credit sometimes can get given to someone who's not even in the movie or really not even that much a part of it. It's actually, despite its fancy title, you don't get much creative control, or you probably don't get any creative control aside from just having connections and recommending people, whatever. But Blake was not happy with this. She wanted credit so that she could come in, like she said in her press run, make all these decisions to wardrobe and music and blah blah blah, as she ended up doing. So this suit does claim that Blake basically ignored the boundaries of her role and completely took over, starting with wardrobe. And this, Justin claims, is where the tensions first started, because there were photos taken on set, and the general public had a really negative reaction to how Blake Lively's character was dressed. And Justin was getting stressed about this, because he's like, well, Blake, people don't like your outfits, and Blake's not even meant to be choosing the outfits. So he was really stressed about this, and this is when he claims he went to her trailer to have a conversation about, reestablishing their roles, setting some boundaries, just basically putting Blake in her place. And he said that the conversation did not go well, and that's why he was there for hours trying to talk through this. And then he says that he did get emotional because, this production means a lot to him. And he felt like Blake was compromising the film's success, and this is why he cried. If you remember last episode, we talked about Blake writing that requirement into the code of conduct that Justin was not to spend hours crying in her trailer anymore. Now, I will say, I want to clarify, I don't care that he cried. Like, whatever, I cry all the time. It's normal for people to cry, especially if you're like emotional or whatever. I just think speaking from a professional perspective, it is, to me, still inappropriate to have this conversation that is so emotionally charged in the bounds of like Blake's trailer, which is meant to be her space, her comfort space, whatever, and then, have this intense emotional reaction and subject her to that for hours. I think if I was in Justin's position and I was at work and I was having to have a conversation that was going to be emotionally charged for me, I would just change all those circumstances. I wouldn't have it in someone's kind of like private space. I would have it in a meeting room or at an office somewhere, and I would bring in an HR representative and then maybe like a safe person for me, a support person, and then Blake can bring her support person too. The thing is, like, I'm not shaming him for going there and crying, whatever. To me, that's unprofessional. I don't want to be that bitch, but it's like, could never be me. Like, there are appropriate ways to have tough conversations at work. So anyway, I just thought that was really interesting. He goes on to say that Ryan Reynolds called in a personal favor to Justin's talent agency, and that's why he got dropped by them. He also maintains his stance that Blake's negative online criticism was a result of her own actions, and denies that him and his PR team fronted a smear campaign. And I do think it was both. Yeah, Blake did some of that herself, like, for sure. She was not a great person during their whole press run. But also, we have Melissa Nathan very clearly telling Jennifer Abel, we can bury anyone. And this is the same person who, in my mind, buried Amber Heard and absolutely destroyed Amber's reputation in the public eye. And again, it was over sexual harassment complaints or defamation. So it's just like, why does this keep happening to Melissa? Like, it can't be a coincidence. Justin does also share some text messages between him and Blake, especially him telling Blake that he's hired an intimacy coordinator and that they can arrange to meet up with them. And then he shows Blake's response, which just says, she's feeling good, she can meet them later. And there was no urgency from Blake to meet the intimacy coordinator, even though in Blake's complaint she kind of made it out like the intimacy coordinator was her idea based on inappropriate behavior on set from Justin. So that is definitely odd. He also shares a text exchange between him and Blake after she had first shown him the scene she had rewritten. And from the context we can gather from Justin's text, it basically makes it out like Blake had invited him over to to show him the scene she rewritten. And then while he was there, Ryan Reynolds comes out and starts talking about how amazing the rewrite is. And then apparently Taylor Swift also was there and was like, oh my gosh, the scene's so great. And so in his text to Blake afterwards, Justin was just like, I have faith in you. I trust you. I would have enjoyed hearing your scene. I would have, supported it even without you having to bring in your friends to which that is immature, and that is a bit childish to have your husband and your friend there to be like, oh my god, Blake, your rewrite, oh, it's so good, oh, Justin, isn't her rewrite so amazing, whatever. And then he shares this super cringy response that he got from Blake, and it says, if you ever get around to watching Game of Thrones, you'll appreciate that I'm Khaleesi, and like her, I happen to have a few dragons. My dragons also protect those I fight for, so really, we all benefit from these gorgeous monsters of mine. You will too, I can promise you. Okay, 2025 pop culture prediction. Taylor Swift has an album called Gorgeous Monsters, has a song called Gorgeous Monsters on her next album. But also, her relating to Khaleesi, oh my god, Blake, this is what I mean when I tell you she's an out of touch queen. I mean, in that sense, she was kind of self-aware. She is a lot like Khaleesi, but yeah, it's not amazing. I just still think that, as much as Justin is saying look, here's evidence that I was doing nothing wrong, yada yada, I think he even submitted some footage, or his lawyers posted some footage of them filming that slow dance scene, which is the one where Blake was saying Justin was speaking to her inappropriately, and they showed footage saying no, he's not. But I will say, when I watched that footage, it does, to me at least, read like Justin is leaning in a lot and Blake is leaning back a lot. So maybe it wasn't quite exactly how she wrote about it in her complaint, but I would still argue. I watched on YouTube, and some of the comments were like, she is flirting with him. And I was like, oh my gosh, do you have the emotional intelligence of a watermelon? Because she looked uncomfortable. I'll just say it straight up. She looked uncomfortable. So anyway, that's whatever. And I think this is what can be quite frustrating about complaints like this, where it's one person saying, here was a situation and I didn't feel comfortable and I didn't feel safe, and yet to another person they're going, well, why did you feel uncomfortable? Nothing was wrong. And this is where I was really saying it all really comes down to the fact that Blake expressed her discomfort, according to her complaint, to Wayfarer, and nothing was done. And to me, that is where the biggest fault is, because if I went up to my managers or whatever at work and I said, I was in a situation and it made me feel uncomfortable, even if they felt like I was overreacting or they felt like they didn't know what the fuck I was talking about, I would expect them to take my feelings seriously, and I would expect them to, organize a meeting, work through it, come up with strategies to manage my discomfort. Even if they were like, oh no, that person was just joking around or whatever. That is bare minimum expectation for me in a workplace. So to me, even though everyone's now like, oh my god, see, Blake was just a lying, stupid bitch, I still think her complaint stands. And I don't need to see Justin's texts. He shared one text where he was telling Blake that she should feel good about her body to kind of dispel those body shaming comments he made to her. But it's I don't need to see all that. At the end of the day, for me, it seems like your studio, your company was ill-equipped to deal with someone feeling uncomfortable on set. And I think what's so frustrating about this case for me as well is that and any cases of this nature, whenever you have someone saying, I was sexually harassed or there was sexual misconduct in my workplace, people expect that person to then become the perfect victim, which means that they're not allowed to have any controversies. They're not allowed to have ever done anything bad. They basically have to be a saint. And I don't know, newsflash, bad people can be victims of sexual abuse as well. Unfortunately, abusers don't discriminate against bad people, all right? So yes, do I think Blake is a bit of a brat? Yes. Do I think she's out of touch? Yes. Do I think that she probably manipulates people around her using her privileged position of power. Yes, but like none of that to me discredits her safety or like her, that doesn't mean she deserves to be abused. Like what is going on here? I just don't understand why the world has to be so black and white that if you come forward and you say, hey, this really bad thing happened to me, you're only allowed to say that if you've never ever done a single bad thing yourself in your entire life. Like, it seems so ridiculous to me. And it is really frustrating. The other thing that I find really frustrating with this whole situation is that the lawsuits encompass so much that it's really easy to distract from the abuse claims. And I feel like this has really been happening because, we've got the smear campaign. I've seen so many articles talking about, oh, Blake thinks she's like Khaleesi. I've seen articles discussing Blake's shitty marketing tactics for It Ends With Us. I've seen photos of Justin having his premiere in the basement, and these are all of those things, the press tour, Blake rewriting the scene, Taylor Swift and Brian being Blake's dragons. Like, none of that is actually related to the abuse claims. That's like a separate beast altogether, a separate gorgeous monster altogether. Don't even get me started on the irony, because this is exactly what happened with the film as well. Everyone distracted from the message of the film, and I feel like a lot of these things are pulling focus when we really should be taking a look and saying, here is a woman coming forward about feeling uncomfortable, feeling like, someone was behaving ill towards her. And instead of focusing on that and making sure she's okay, whatever, we're just like, oh, but remember when Blake got married on a plantation? Oh, but remember when Blake marketed alcohol for the movie? Like, it's just, anyway, it's really frustrating. I think that's why I'm also like, I never want to talk about this again, because it just feels like it's useless. Like, I can already see this heading down the Amber and Johnny route when Amber was saying all this really deeply problematic shit about Johnny Depp, and all the internet focused on was that one clip of her saying her dog stepped on a bee. Like, it just really, it really irks me when shit like this happens. So hopefully this gets settled, whatever. I don't even know what I want the outcome to be anymore. I kind of just want everyone to shut up about it. Okay, actually, I do know what I want. I really want some of the other people who worked on set to come forward. But I feel like they won't, because if they come forward and they speak in favor of Blake, everyone's just going to be like, Blake and Ryan paid them, Taylor Swift paid them. Like, it's gonna be so frustrating. Anyway, those are truly my final thoughts. I'm so done with these two. I don't like either of them, as I've said many times, but I also really don't like how the world is reacting to this. I do think there's like a lot of wishy-washy shit, and it is annoying, and people just aren't used to dealing with stuff that isn't black and white. Like, there's no gray area allowed on the internet, whatever. Okay, let's move on to the US TikTok ban. Now, as I'm sure you're all aware, a couple months back already, although this has been an ongoing conversation since like 2020, the US did announce that it would be banning TikTok on the 19th of January 2025. And in the run-up to this date, which I think was on Tuesday, I felt like I was watching the series finale of TikTok. I'll be honest, I've kind of been off the app a little bit the last couple weeks. It just hasn't had its usual charm for me lately, but I was on it quite a bit, watching kind of the world react to the fact that this super popular app was going to get banned in one of the app's biggest markets, the US. And it was like bittersweet. A lot of people were posting, reposting their favorite trends from like 2019 and 2020. I saw a lot of people like signing off, like the Hype House, was like, signing off, and just, it was very nostalgic, especially if you have been on the app for as long as I have. I also saw a video of Emily Mariko. She went viral probably maybe in 2021 for making this salmon bowl, this like salmon dish. And she came back online, made the salmon bowl one last time, but this time she had her baby in her high chair. And it was just like, yeah, it felt really full circle. It felt like watching the series finale of your favorite show. I was like, oh yeah, that creator from 2020. Oh yeah, that, whatever. Oh my gosh, they have a kid now. Like, it's so crazy. There were a lot of people who were obviously pissed about this, and I guess I should probably mention the whole ban idea came about because there were data concerns because TikTok's parent company ByteDance is a Chinese-owned company, which means that all the data from TikTok, I think, is owned or sits in China. I don't know. It's stored in China, maybe. And this is, the US obviously don't like that. And so that's kind of what enacted this ban. So a lot of people I saw people making videos saying my data, my choice, which I was like, wow, this is really interesting, because I feel like we don't talk enough about data autonomy and like who owns your data. Obviously you should own it, and yet it's like regulated under all of these acts and laws and whatever that you don't have control over. Anyway, thought that was interesting. A lot of people were asking for the CEO of TikTok, Xu, to become the next US president. That was strange, didn't expect that to happen. Or saying like, save us please, we don't want to leave. Another interesting trend that started happening was TikTokers exposing themselves. Like, for example, Kaylee May, she is a user that was known for making those ice restock videos, like classic overconsumption shit. She would make like ice for her coffee and then ice with like flowers in it for her poppy soda and like whatever. She came out and was like, I don't actually like ice in my drinks. And despite for years doing all these videos about how she's restocking her ice, that wasn't genuine or authentic at all, which you could probably like have come to that conclusion yourself, but it is still jarring to hear someone so openly just be like, yeah, I don't like ice, even though I make money on this app for making ice. I saw mukbangers saying that they don't actually eat all their food, which, okay, I feel two ways about this. I don't care if you're a mukbanger and you share your food. Like, you maybe you're doing like one of those crumble cookie videos and you have a bite of each flavor and then you share the rest with your partner and your kids and whatever. That's fine. But if you're a mukbanger who does these like, I'm gonna eat 8 pizzas, and you're chewing it and then spitting that food out and essentially wasting it, I have so much fucking beef with you, because like, to me, wasted food is literally one of the worst things you can do in this entire world. So anyway, a lot of them didn't say what they meant by that. I hope they were just meaning they share the food that they get with their families. The Duolingo bird did a face reveal. Like, a lot of things were coming to an end. One creator that I was waiting to hear from was Scar Girl. If you don't know, Scar Girl is this girl who had a scar on her face, and I don't even know the full lore of this. Maybe I can do a mini episode on this. So basically, it was just this girl who had a scar on her face, and it looked drawn on. I don't know how else to say it. And people were infuriated, and she would make these videos of her like with a cotton bud being like, look, it doesn't wipe off because it's real. And we had like dermatologists reacting to whether Scar Girl's scar is real. And anyway, it was this whole thing. I really thought she was gonna come on and be like, haha, it was fake. Because do you know what? Also, her scar like faded away. It sounds so ridiculous explaining all this. But anyway, Scar Girl unfortunately didn't come forward. And of course, a lot of people were also talking about like, where do we go? Where are we going next? And the kind of app of choice for migrating was RedNote. And RedNote is an app, I think the creators were from Shanghai potentially, or at least that's where it's headquartered. And so it's really popular in China, Taiwan, Singapore, a lot of those countries, but it's not so popular, I guess, in Western countries. But a lot of US TikTokers and TikTok users were migrating to RedNote. And now, one thing I just didn't expect out of this whole US TikTok ban is to see some wholesome content for once on my page, some like hope core type shit. But what started to happen is that, and this is maybe insensitive, but they were calling themselves TikTok refugees, were signing up to RedNote. And this is an app that wasn't made in the US. It's not centralized to the US. It's not even centralized to English speaking users, right? And so we had this really beautiful moment where, and I love every single one of my American listeners, but where they weren't the main characters for once, right? So yeah, I saw a bunch of TikToks teaching American RedNote users like the etiquette, like, hey, when you upload a video, you have to put the subtitles in both languages, in English and in Mandarin. I saw videos of people like paying their cat tax, which was like your entry fee. So you have to like post a photo of a cat or something cute, you know, to like pay your tax. And then I saw native RedNote users, which is what they were referring themselves as, you know, welcoming them in. And it was really beautiful. I don't know. This is so silly, but it just really made me feel something. I was kind of like, this is a beautiful situation that's happening. And it's also really fucking ironic because, like I said, the whole TikTok ban conversation started because the US was like, oh my god, China's stealing all our data, and now they went to ban this app and instead just encouraged thousands of people to migrate their content to a Chinese-owned app. I thought that was funny. So yeah, it was kind of wholesome as well, amongst the panic and the fear. Now, before midnight on the 18th of January, so some people were like getting their last scroll in before bedtime, the app went dark. And so did CapCut and an app called Lemonade. I'm not sure what Lemonade does, but CapCut is like a video editing app. Very popular and very integrated with TikTok because they're both owned by ByteDance. So US users got a notification saying, sorry, TikTok isn't available right now. There's a law banning TikTok, which means you can't use the app. Regular type of comms that you'd expect when an app gets shut down. And then, here's the fucking weird part. The notification reads, we are fortunate that President Trump has indicated that he will work with us on a solution to reinstate TikTok once he takes office. Okay, once he takes office. So he's not president yet. Like, he's not the fucking president. But also, why would you name one person like that? When does that ever happen? When have you ever seen, like, comms from an app like this single out a president? Like, it's giving dictatorship. It's so weird. It was like, I remember when I saw screenshots of the notification popping up from people sharing it, I was like, what? Like, why is he named? It's so odd. It's so jarring. So the app went dark and immediately the world backstabbed. And my American listeners, I've got you because I'm here. I'm here to admit I didn't obviously take part in this, but the rest of the world backstabbed the second the Americans left the platform. It was actually kind of sad. I mean, some of them were fine. Some of them were just people like, yay, we finally get to use the metric system. But you also had a lot of people who were like, okay, like, stitch this with something an American once said to you that just made no fucking sense. Or like, thank fuck we can finally spell mom M-U-M. And people were happy. I'll just be real with you guys. I did see a couple ones that I might have laughed at. Sorry. One of them was from someone in Australia saying, who's gonna tell me it's winter when I film myself going to the beach? And then another one was underneath the video where someone was like, they're gone, yes, they're finally gone. And the top comment was, what's a court without a jester? I'm so sorry. But do you know, okay, it's not you guys listening individually, right? It's like the 1% of people that happen to be from your nation, which is huge, by the way, so you're bound to have some uglies in there, but it's them that like ruin it for the rest of you, okay? So I think those videos they were directed at those people, okay? That we weren't talking about you. Now, my favorite video to come out of this, which I also posted to my story, was James Charles under his bed sheets, like he was hiding from the feds with a fucking burner account going like, you guys, I found a way to stay on the app, don't tell on me, blah blah. I also saw people offering to stream their For You page with money. You have to respect the grift, right? Like they went out and they saw this shit situation and they were like, how can I profit off this? Which is gross mentality, but in this day and age, that's just what you gotta do. Despite all of this happening, only a few hours later, TikTok is restored. So unfortunately for you Americans, all of our videos being like, they're gone, were still circulating. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you had to see that. But, you know, I'm glad to have you back. Glad you guys are okay. This time, the notification read, welcome back. Thanks for your patience and support. As a result of President Trump's efforts, TikTok is back in the US. Like, again, it's so weird to single him out like this. At this point in time, he still hadn't had his inauguration. Like, he still wasn't the president. It's just so odd. And also, the timing of it all, the fact that it was only down for a couple hours, a lot of people were like, wow, they just wanted to fucking panic us. Like, they just wanted us to feel how much power they have. Like, they can shut this shit off if they want, you know? Like, it was giving propaganda, it was giving manipulation. Ever since, I'd hate to say it, but TikTok feels like truth talk. I feel like Trump has kind of taken over the app a little bit. He did hop on Truth Social to make a statement saying he wants the US to have 50% ownership position in a joint venture with the company, and you know, then TikTok made a statement thanking Trump again, and the whole thing just does not sit well with me, and it wasn't giving democracy. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just weird, right? Like, it's so, when do you ever see comms like that from an app notification? They're ruining those spaces where us people are meant to feel like we can come on and express our views and blah, blah, blah. Like, now there's a lot of rumors going around as to what happened. You know, like I said, a lot of people think that the app only went dark and then came back as like some kind of Trump propaganda. Oh, we nearly lost our beloved TikTok, but thank God President Trump was there, because he really fought to keep it for us. I will say the ban isn't completely off the table. It's just been, the deadline's been extended a bit so that they can work out this joint venture, whatever. A lot of people also think that this involved Meta, which is obviously Mark Zuckerberg's company, because apparently Facebook now has a TikTok account, and also a lot of American users reported that they were following the Facebook account when the app went live again. So people think there's potentially been some software updates, some like, you know, tinkling with the algorithms. Maybe there was a sale to Meta, or Meta got some part of it or whatever, which I really hope not, because Meta fucking sucks. I'm sorry. The Meta apps suck, and just in terms of like their algorithms aren't that great. I mean, Facebook is like 900% bot content right now. The other sus thing is that CapCut didn't get restored, and on the 20th of January, Meta announced that they were coming out with their own phone editing app called Edits. So again, just feeding into that conspiracy narrative, because yeah, why would you bring back one of the apps and not the other one, and then suddenly there's a rival app that, you know, gets announced in the middle of all this? It's all just really weird. The other thing I'll just say is, like, don't forget that Trump was for the TikTok ban, okay? So before you let the narrative be shifted to him saving TikTok, he wanted this. He actually, I'm pretty sure, initiated this whole conversation back in 2020 when he said he was going to ban TikTok. I remember this because I was on the app at the time, and I was like, god damn, like, imagine trying to deal with the pandemic and you can't even scroll. And a lot of people at the time thought his big aversion and opposition towards TikTok came from the fact that it was used to organize a lot of like pranks against him or protests against him. It was obviously huge in driving press around the Black Lives Matter movement at the time, but also there was a lot of criticism of Trump and his policies on the app. And I think most notably there was that prank where people were buying tickets to his Oklahoma campaign rally in Tulsa, I believe, and they're not actually attending, so that on paper or like to his sponsors it looked like, oh man, the event's going to be massive, and then you'd get there and there would hardly be anyone there, things like that. So he started the ban. Like, do not forget this. I'm feeling a bit soured about the app, I will say. Like, just that blatant Trumpy propaganda, just, it didn't even show up on my phone. Like I said, I'm not a US TikTok user, but it just, seeing those screenshots just really like pissed me off. I think the app fully showed its alliance. The CEO, although he doesn't have CEO written in his TikTok bio anymore, but Shu did attend the inauguration for Trump. I feel like the app just really like showed its true colors. Kind of like when Kim Kardashian posted that photo of Melania Trump on inauguration day. It's like, okay, interesting. Like, we had our suspicions, but thanks for confirming. But yeah, the TikTok ban was definitely an interesting time to be on the internet. Look, at best, it was like something funny that sparked some interesting memes and, you know, again, showed how ridiculous my generation can be on the internet. TikTok users are next level dramatic for sure. There were people filming themselves crying. Obviously, if your livelihood is from TikTok, I can understand how this would be so scary to go through. But some of the people crying were just regular users. And look, I'm a veteran. I was here when Vine ended as well, okay? And we were sad, but we definitely weren't filming ourselves crying over it. Yeah, that's the ban at best, and I think at worst, it's something really sinister is happening. I think it once again just shows us that there are certain select people in this world who have way too much power and way too much control. And it is a scary thought to think that this kind of app where people are allowed to express their views or maybe share ideas and see into other areas of the world outside of their little bubble where they're living in, it is scary to think that things like that can just be taken away from an entire nation by like one team of people. It's scary. It's a scary thought, and I do feel bad for everyone that had to go through that emotional roller coaster this week, and I hope you're okay. The little silver lining, I think, was seeing this really nice like cultural exchange that was happening on RedNote. Silver linings everywhere you look. But that is all I have for this week's bonus episode. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast if you enjoy the show. And please feel free to leave a written review. I love my words of affirmation. And you can connect with me on socials at Mood for Feud. Next week, I will be back with another Feud episode. Should I give a hint? Nah. I'll let you guys guess. I'll keep you guessing in case I change my mind on what the next episode will be. I hope everyone is crushing their goals this week, and of course keeping out of trouble. Don't get into any feuds, and I will talk to you all next week. Bye.